Srila Prabhupada wasn't just presenting a philosophy, he was presenting a culture. So I hope I don't offend anybody by these remarks. This is just an information service, okay? You can do what you want about it, which you probably will. It's nice that some of you seem to have attempted to dress like devotees. However, the style of dress that Srila Prabhupada gave for his female disciples was a sari, not gopi skirts. God only knows where gopi skirts came from. They didn't come from Srila Prabhupada. The first time he went back to India and then came back to America, he brought with him in his suitcase dhotis and saris. Now, what does that tell you? It means he wanted his female disciples to wear saris. I don't remember any ladies wearing gopi skirts. I never even heard of gopi skirts until I think sometime in the 80s or 90s. So, according to one theory, some enterprising Vaishya figured out that ISKCON ladies are lazy. And it's too much trouble to put on a sari, and it's also more difficult to wash saris. So he decided, here's a great way to make a lot of money, because there are thousands of lazy women in ISKCON. So he created gopi skirts. I mean, this guy must be a multimillionaire by now. But, you know, I admit I tend to be a little bit of a fundamentalist fanatic. You know, I don't see why we don't just follow Prabhupada. Why people always have to invent new things. It's very simple. And Prabhupada considered saris to be elegant. He considered them to be aristocratic. Like in India, you never see any aristocratic lady wearing a gopi skirt. In fact, you hardly see anybody outside ISKCON wearing gopi skirts.
Yep.
Huh? Right?
Yeah. I heard it was the Gurukuli girls, they made them for the Gurukuli girls in Vrindavan, and that's how they started.
So for little girls, it's okay, you know, but for grown ladies, it's kind of weird. You know, I mean, who wears? I mean, nobody wears gopi skirts. I mean, let's say, you know, ladies who sweep the streets or something like that. Sometimes they wear something sort of similar, or gypsies. If you want to be a gypsy, fine. You know, we don't even know if the gopis wear gopi skirts. You know, so you can do what you want, but the style of dress Prabhupada gave, and which he liked to see his lady disciples dressed in, was saris. Yes?
Two comments. Okay. One is that in many pictures Radharani is wearing gopi dress, and in another comment is that it is
where
not
in what?
In many pictures of Radharani she's wearing a gopi dress. And
how do you know?
And who painted the pictures?
It's pictures.
Probably relatives of this Vaishya.
Well, I don't know. They paint different descriptions, right? But and also, isn't it better to wear skirts than to wear pants?
Yes.
Yes. So
that's why I say I appreciate that some of you are trying to dress like devotees, but I'm just making the point that I mean, to me, I like to remember Prabhupada, you know, and when I see ladies dressed in saris, it reminds me of Prabhupada. It makes me feel like I'm in ISKCON. Or when I see ladies dressed in gopi skirts, my brain goes like on tilt, you know, like another concoction, another invention. You know, for me, it's disturbing. Why? I mean, not just that. I mean, there's so many things that's disturbing that are kind of not in line with Srila Prabhupada. So why don't we do things the way Prabhupada did them, the way Prabhupada obviously wanted them? I don't understand what the problem is. You know, yeah, it's a little bit extra work or something, but you know, we don't join this movement for our convenience. That's not the purpose. Anyhow, like I said, you can do whatever you want about it. Okay, another thing is, if you're going to take the trouble to put on, let's say, a dhoti, or to put on a sari, why not also take the trouble to put on tilak? Any response to that?
That's a good question.
Because the reality is Srila Prabhupada really made a big deal out of wearing tilak. He made a much bigger deal out of wearing tilak than he did out of wearing devotional clothing. For Srila Prabhupada, tilak was like, it was very, very important. But nowadays I see a lot of devotees, they just, you know, they think it's like, they think it's something superficial. Srila Prabhupada didn't consider it superficial, nor do the Vaishnava scriptures consider it superficial. Wearing tilak is very important. Okay, another point about culture.
Yesterday I have it, but not.
It's also in the room. There.
Another point about culture. I don't think you will find any photograph or video of Srila Prabhupada wearing Radha Kund tilak. There's one place in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where he mentions about wearing Radha Kund tilak. But Prabhupada himself never did it. And he certainly never instructed his disciples to do it. So it's just one of those things that, what's Radha Kund tilak?
Yeah, and I know, I understood that is the dark tilak, but what is the difference? I don't
know what it
know.
is.
Yes, I don't know.
Well, Radha Kund tilak comes from Radha Kund.
It's the mud. In
But to me the difference is Prabhupada didn't do it. And he didn't teach his disciples to do that. So why should we do it? That's one way I have of thinking. Another thing is that the light colored tilak looks much nicer than this dark gray tilak. But the main reason is Prabhupada didn't do it. He didn't instruct his disciples to do it. So these are just points for your consideration. You can do whatever you like about it. The last time I was here was 2 years ago, and probably I won't come for another couple of years, so, you know, in one sense, I don't care.
next soon.
But on the other hand, I have to say frankly that if you think I'm some use here, I'm much more inspired to go places where I see that devotees do things like in a normal, standard way, and where they take seriously the things that I mentioned. So, up to you.
You have to come and check.
The ball's in your court, as the saying goes. Okay, now, I think we'll skip an introductory kirtan because you just had kirtan. Also, we don't really have much time to talk about a very big topic.
After prasadam, you can keep on until midnight.
What's that?
You can keep going until midnight.
Maybe you can. Yeah, another thing is that we're supposed to have lunch at 2? Is that
2 to 2:30. Yes.
somewhere between 2 and 2:30?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
I can put the offering on maybe at 2 o'clock, something like that.
Okay. So just so that... yeah, one thing I would really like to avoid, if possible, is people going in and out of the room. It's really distracting. So I would say that if possible, try to avoid going to the toilet. If you have to use the toilet now, but don't interrupt the program. My idea is to have a break about, let's see, well, you're having having lunch at
2:30.
2:30. So we'll have a break about 1:30 or so. 1:30, yeah, something like that. 10-minute break. So if you can just hang on till then, that would be best. Okay. And this way we can focus more. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Dhyananjana Salakaya Chakshun Militanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who can fulfill the desires of everyone just like desire trees, and who are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narasana, may I have a question?
Yes.
What's the difference between a workshop and a seminar?
I think it's more practical.
Yeah, worship is maybe more.
Huh?
Work. It's you can choose what you want to do.
Okay.
But workshop is maybe like.
You do
work.
something more practical.
Yeah.
More practical.
Workshop we will chant
less
more, and
formal.
seminar we will hear more.
Yes.
Oh.
We are into seminar.
Huh?
We are into seminar.
Seminars okay?
Yes.
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 No, I don't like the word work. Just hearing the word makes me tired. Okay, so, yeah, so anyhow, this is a, whatever you want to call it, a seminar or workshop about Japa. And I don't propose to be a great chanter of Japa, or I don't propose to be a big expert or anything. But somehow or other, I've been able to chant Japa for 41 years, so, which apparently is a big accomplishment these days. So, I guess I must be doing something right. And I'm going to try to present points that are based on Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru. In particular on things that Srila Prabhupada said and what we read in the scriptures. Okay? I'll also tell something about my own realizations. Again, they're based on Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru, but different people have different realizations. They look at things from different angles. So some of the things I say might seem to be contrary to something that some other senior devotee said. It's not very important. It doesn't matter. Srila Prabhupada said it's perfectly fine that there are different opinions amongst Vaishnavas. So, it's not that everyone has to agree. But what is necessary is that everybody has to be lined up with Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru. That's very important. You can't just make up your own thing, Like,
Maybe everyone
huh?
doesn't know what Sadhu Shastra.
Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru. Sadhu means the previous acharyas in our line, like in particular before Srila Prabhupada. Well, for all of you, includes Srila Prabhupada. Shastra means scripture, and Guru means your initiating spiritual master. When something is lined up with all those three, then it's valid. If it's not lined up with one of those three, then you could have a problem.
It's like a check and balance system.
Check and balance system, yeah.
And if we have questions along the way, we can just
Yeah, we'll
ask.
have opportunities for asking questions. Yeah. Okay, so let's see, what else was I missing? Yeah. So to begin with, I want to read something from the scriptures. Now, this might be something you already know, you've already heard, but it's a good idea to read it again because our tendency in the Kali Yuga is to forget everything. Like about 5 seconds after we hear it. So this is a very important verse. Whoops, excuse me, wrong place. Yeah, this is a very important verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Hang on a second. Sorry for the delay. That's a very important verse. From the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 8, entitled The Author Receives the Orders of Krishna and Guru. Text number 16. Bahu janma kore jari shravana kirtan, tabutana poi Krishna pode premadhan. If one is infested with the 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name for many births, he will not get the love of Godhead that is the ultimate goal of this chanting. So, what does that mean? Well, if we're infested with the 10 offenses in chanting, so this verse seems to indicate that it's futile to continue chanting, because even after many births, you're not going to get what you're going for, right? So we might as well just quit right now and everybody have a few beers, right? No?
Oh.
Oh, so how are we to understand this? It says right here, if one, just listen to it slowly. If one is infested with the 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Now when we hear that, we immediately think, oh, that's me, right? Okay, then, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name for many births, well, then what's the point of making an endeavor? He will not get the love of Godhead that is the ultimate goal of this chanting. So what's the point? There's no point. Might as well give up. Yeah.
You want to mention the 10 offenses?
Yeah, we could mention the 10 offenses. Does everybody know the 10 offenses? Well, it helps to know what they are. Okay, let's get to that later. In a little bit. But what about this point?
Well, there are, what I was thinking is that there's the ultimate goal, but there's also things, on the way towards that goal.
Like what?
That are relishable. If love of Godhead is the ultimate stage, then there are sort of subsequent stages which are also better than our current material stage.
Like what?
Well, that the heart becomes cleansed gradually.
Mode of goodness?
Yeah, attainment of mode of goodness,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of that it's worth doing, even if not sort of if you don't become a world champion, still you sort of get some benefit.
Yeah, the thing is that, this verse says that despite endeavor to chant the holy name for many births, you won't get the ultimate goal if you're infested with the 10 offenses. Okay, fine. We start out being offensive. Okay, that's just given. We by nature offensive. We make offenses the way we breathe in and breathe out. You know, it's just like automatic, right? However, if we are accepting a process which is clearing us of offenses, if we're trying to become cleared of the offenses, then ultimately we won't remain infested with these 10 offenses. So that kind of endeavor is worthwhile. That we're taking the purification process necessary. It doesn't matter. The idea that I have to become completely purified overnight is ridiculous. It's not possible. Nobody can do that. But the point is that at least you're on the way. You see? It's like in the Harinam Chintamani, Haridas Thakur gives an example. That it's just like if there's mist in the morning. You probably get mist here sometimes in the morning, right? Okay, so then when the sun comes up, the sun gradually comes up. The sun doesn't come up all of a sudden, but it gradually becomes more light, and as the sun rises in the sky, also the mist tends to dissipate, right? So, in the same way, as the Krishna sun rises in our hearts by chanting, okay, then gradually we become more enlightened, and the mist of anarthas or unwanted things dissipates. It's a very natural, gradual process. We don't have to worry. We just have to follow the natural process, okay? So, yes, if we're infested with the offenses, we won't get love of Godhead. But if we're in a process of getting purified of those offenses, then gradually, ultimately, we will get love of Godhead. Okay? Any questions about that point? Yes, sir.
So, I mean, the goal is to chant purely.
Yes.
But the process is also to chant, right?
Yes. Yes.
So there's both. They're both. It's there on the whole sort of way. Or it's just like the quality that changes, or
Yeah. In one sense, you can say that the means and the end are the same. The goal and how you get to the goal, they're the same. The goal is to chant Hare Krishna purely, but the way you get there is by chanting Hare Krishna as purely as we possibly can. Yes, we have to avoid the 10 offenses. Yes.
So what is the process to avoid the offenses? I heard once that, or we always say that the 11th offense to be
Inattentive while chanting.
Is this the only process to avoid the offenses, or is there any other
Yeah.
besides just trying to avoid them individually?
The thing is that they're different. I've seen at least 2 different lists of what the 10 offenses are. But again, in the Harinam Chintamani, Haridas Thakur says that all the other offenses are based on this one offense of being inattentive while chanting. It's our biggest problem. Yeah, what are the... I'd rather not go over all the 10 offenses right now, because anybody, you know, it's in many places. It's probably in the songbooks, I can't remember, but it's... you can find out what the 10 offenses are. But this one offense about being inattentive, this will address. Yes?
I just maybe could say a little bit about inattentiveness, what it
Yeah.
sort of means.
Well, one thing is I haven't even got to the purport of this
Oh.
verse yet, so that's next. Yes. Yeah, inattentiveness is a very important. According to Haridas Thakur, it's the root of all the other offenses. So obviously, super important. But yeah, we need to know how to avoid it. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says in this connection that although one may go on chanting the Hare Krishna mantra for many, many years, there is no possibility of attaining the platform of devotional service unless one accepts Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One must follow strictly the instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu given in the Shikshastika, verse 3. Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sihistuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadakari. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Unquote. One who follows this direction, being freed from the 10 kinds of offenses, becomes successful in Krishna consciousness and ultimately reaches the platform of loving service to the personality of Godhead. So, Srila Prabhupada doesn't state it directly here, but he's implying or indicating that by acting according to this verse, that's how you avoid the 10 offenses. Chanting in a humble state of mind. Of course, that's also not so easy for us. But anyway, this is the idea. This verse, very important verse, Trinadapi Sunichena, and it's quoted often by Srila Prabhupada as key to being able to chant the holy names of the Lord properly. And it's kind of, when we hear it, if you think about what these points are, I mean, it really sounds extreme, right? Thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. You know, generally we don't like to think of ourselves as low. We like to think of ourselves as, what do they call it in pop psychology? What is it? That's there's a phrase. You're supposed to value yourself or something. I can't remember exactly how it goes. Anyway, have a concept of your own self-worth. You're supposed to be like sort of proud of yourself or something, right? So to think of yourself as lower than the straw on the street, this is like not acceptable in modern society. I mean, how low is a straw on the street? It's so low that you can't get any lower, right? How do you get lower than that? So it's pretty low. Or the one that really gets me is more tolerant than a tree. I mean, really. You know, how tolerant is a tree? Incredible. Depends on which country you're in, probably, but you know, trees stand out in the blazing hot sun. How hot does it get here in the summertime?
30 plus.
Huh?
30 plus?
You can get up to 30.
30 plus?
35.
Wow.
What?
That's
No.
not so
No.
It's maximum.
That's like the
No.
max.
Yeah.
20, 22,
No,
3.
no. I have a picture of the degree, like
One time in life.
Yeah, one
I was 45.
Huh?
I was 45 in the sun.
45.
In the sun.
45.
In the sun.
Okay, once every 3,000 years.
Yes.
But anyhow, it gets hot, right? And look at the trees. They just stand there, you know. And you never hear a tree complaining, you know, objecting. Right? In the winter, freezing cold, snow, rain, everything. And then Sally and Billy come along and carve a heart in with an arrow going through it, right? They do that here?
Yeah.
Yeah. In Russia also? Can you imagine? You know, just like somebody coming along, you just stand there carving them. And they don't complain, they don't protest. I mean, to be more tolerant than a tree is really, 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 really tolerant. Unbelievably tolerant. Okay, then, what else? Devoid of all sense of false prestige. You know, just to think of ourselves as completely insignificant. And ready to offer all respect to others. That means everyone. Phew. That's a really tough one. You know, even to somebody who's like a real jerk. You know, like
The shopkeeper from yesterday.
Huh?
The shopkeeper from
the
yesterday.
shopkeeper from yesterday, Mother Sanatani's experience, and or the like. I've had experience in Russia with the DPS. You know DPS. they pay us. How do you say? These people that
the best. Yeah.
they pay us. They're obnoxious people. They're like legal gangsters. They,
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
I also know.
legalized gangsters. They, you know, you're driving along the street and they have these magic wands and they stop your car. They especially like to stop the SUVs and, you know, the fancy cars. And then they take bribes.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to pay them. They're gangsters.
Yes.
Some places worse than others. But anyway, so to offer all respects to others, then in such a state of mind one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. In other words, if you're not in such a state of mind, you can't chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. I heard that one time a devotee said to Srila Prabhupada, that Srila Prabhupada, chanting Hare Krishna is very easy. And Srila Prabhupada said, yes. And then the devotee said, but continuing to chant Hare Krishna is very difficult. And Prabhupada said, yes. So that's the trick, is how to continue to chant Hare Krishna for our whole lives. Okay, so continuing on with the purport. One must come to the understanding that the holy name of the Lord and the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself are identical. Mother Sanatani, can you hear?
Yeah, I hear whatever you say.
Okay. One cannot reach this conclusion unless one is offenseless in chanting the holy name. By our material calculation, we see a difference between the name and the substance. Like, for instance, if you chant water, 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 it doesn't quench your thirst. It'll make you more thirsty. You don't get water that way, because there's a difference between the name and the item. But in the spiritual world, the absolute is always absolute. The name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the absolute are all as good as the absolute himself. Thus one is understood to be an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead if he considers himself an eternal servant of the holy name, and in this spirit distributes the holy name to the world. Important point. Thus one is understood to be an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead if, A, he considers himself an eternal servant of the holy name, and B, in this spirit distributes the holy name to the world. Okay? This is like goes along with what I was saying last night, that, you know, that sadhana and preaching aren't two different things. They're connected. And to be a servant of God means to be a servant of God's holy name. So when we chant, we should think that like that. Our mentality should be like that. I'm the servant of the holy name. I'm not trying to control the holy name. We're not trying to enjoy the holy name, but we're trying to serve the holy name. So the holy name of the Lord is the Lord Himself, and therefore it's personal. So, like, for instance, often people in India, they speak of the expression Shri Nam. So Shri is an honorific title for a person. So instead of just saying the holy name, they say Shri Nam. You understand?
And also, Nam Prabhu.
Or Nam Prabhu. They say Nam Prabhu also. Yeah. Okay. Any questions so far?
I immediately had like a reflection, because sometimes while I'm working or in my life, sometimes I'm thinking that, oh, I should do more service. I should, you know, I wish I could do more.
Yeah, that's good.
But then, if I then would sort of just start chanting, that is a service.
Yes.
I mean, you're serving the name.
Chanting is a service. But it's also true that you're supposed to be able to do more than just chant your japa. You're supposed to be able to spread the chanting, as explained here. But the thing is, we aren't going to be empowered to do that if we don't chant japa. Prabhupada makes the point that chanting japa is basically for yourself, and kirtan is for yourself and others. But when you chant japa, that's to give you one of the main reasons is to give you the strength to be able to spread the chanting. The main thing is to spread the chanting, spread Krishna consciousness. But we can't do that unless we ourselves are purified. So we have to. So the first thing is chanting japa, but it's not the only thing. It's the first thing. Okay, and we'll talk more about that later. Okay, let's see. So, one who chants in that spirit without offenses is certainly elevated to the platform of understanding that the holy name and the personality of Godhead are identical. To associate with the holy name and chant the holy name is to associate with the personality of Godhead directly. Important statement. Everybody got this one? To associate with the holy name and chant the holy name is to associate with the personality of Godhead directly. When we chant Hare Krishna, we're associating with God. It's like the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is like a hotline to the biggest big Mr. Big. There's nobody higher than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we can have immediate connection with Him just by chanting Hare Krishna. At any time, any moment, wherever we are, whatever the situation, immediately, it's instantaneous, no problem. Okay, so then in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is clearly said, Sevon mukhe hijivado swayameva sparatyada, from Brahma, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-2-234. The holy name becomes manifest when one engages in the service of the holy name. Okay, another important statement. The holy name becomes manifest when one engages in the service of the holy name. This service, in a submissive attitude, begins with one's tongue. Sevon mukhe hijivado. One must engage his tongue in the service of the holy name. Our Krishna consciousness movement is based on this principle. Okay, everybody got that? Our Krishna consciousness movement is based on this principle. We try to engage all the members of the Krishna consciousness movement in the service of the holy name. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this the other day, but Srila Prabhupada one time was talking about how the tongue has two engagements. Did I say this? I did?
Yes. Tasting prasad and chanting the holy name.
I said this?
On Thursday
No.
you said so. Well, the first night
Oh, where was that?
in Sarpsborg.
Oh, right, yeah. So, yeah, the tongue has two engagements. Chanting Hare Krishna and tasting Krishna prasadam. So one time when Srila Prabhupada spoke about this, then one devotee looked a little bit concerned, a little bit worried. He said, but Srila Prabhupada, not both at the same time. And Srila Prabhupada said, you can chant in between bites. So that way you can do both at the same time. Anyway, then, so Prabhupada goes on and then he talks about prasadam. Since the holy name and Krishna are non-different, the members of the Krishna consciousness movement not only chant the holy name of the Lord offenselessly, but also do not allow their tongues to eat anything that is not first offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everybody got that? This is another standard that has deteriorated in ISKCON a lot the past 35 years. That these days, if you only want to eat Krishna prasadam, you're considered a fanatic by a lot of devotees. But Prabhupada, again and again and again, he emphasizes the importance of just eating Krishna prasadam. And that means that what you offer has to be offerable. You can't just buy pizza at some shop and then, well, I just, I said the prayers, it's offered. No, it has to be offerable. It has to be prepared properly by devotees. And I mean, we can offer things like like nuts or fruits or something like that, it doesn't require any preparation. But you can't just, just because it's vegetarian, for example, doesn't necessarily mean it's offerable. Depends on who prepared it and how they prepared it. You don't know what they put in it too. Like you go to some restaurant and with your friends, and your friends are all meat eaters, and then they say, well, here at this restaurant they have vegetarian dishes. Yeah, but fine, vegetarian dishes, but you don't know how they're preparing these things. They got meat all over their hands. They put in some meat sauce. They don't discriminate. They don't know. You can't call that prasadam. It's ridiculous. The point is that we're trying to get purified. So prasadam is a very important aspect of the purification process. So just putting a label on it, prasadam, like a stamp on it, doesn't make it prasadam. And Prabhupada said one time that just because you put something in front of the Lord doesn't necessarily mean he has to accept it. Doesn't necessarily mean he does accept it. We have to do things in the proper way if we expect Krishna to accept it. But another point is that either something is helping you advance, or that it's helping you become more degraded. It's one or the other. There's no in between. There's no neutral. You understand? Like this expression, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. It's like that. That what you eat, either it's helping you get purified, or it's helping you become more in Maya. There's one of those two possibilities. So therefore we have to be very careful. Now, obviously it's difficult when people are out in this workaday world, but it is possible to deal with it. I don't know about these days what people do in society, but it used to be very common that people take a lunch from home to work, and you can put whatever you want in it. You can have your own lunch. You don't have to eat what they eat. Like for myself, I travel on airplanes a lot. I never eat what they have. I don't even eat the grapes. I mean, the grapes are probably okay, but it's just the whole atmosphere, and they're handling them, and and the grapes look plastic anyway. I mean, they're probably real grapes, but they just don't look very inspiring, to say the least. I'll drink their water. It's okay. But anyway, it's very important to protect ourselves, because and it's related to this point about chanting japa, because it has to do. In other words, just chanting japa isn't just chanting japa. You understand? It's everything you do in your life. It's all connected. And you can't chant japa properly if you're committing offenses. Eating food which is not prasadam is an offense. And this will make it more difficult for you to chant japa. Okay? That's why Prabhupada's putting it in this particular purport. Otherwise, why is he mentioning prasadam? Again, I'll read that sentence. Since the holy name and Krishna are non-different, the members of the Krishna consciousness movement not only chant the holy name of the Lord offenselessly, but also do not allow their tongues to eat anything that is not first offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord declares, Patran pushpan palanto yanyo me bhaktya prayachati tarahan bhakti paritam ashnami prayatat manaha. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. Bhagavad Gita 9:26. Therefore, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness has many temples all over the world, and in each and every temple the Lord has offered these foods. On the basis of his demands, the devotees chant the holy name of the Lord offenselessly and never eat anything that is not first offered to the Lord. The functions of the tongue in devotional service are to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and eat prasadam that is offered to the Lord. Okay? let's see. Now, I want to go backtrack a little bit. Something somebody mentioned. Can't remember. Something you said, Yudhishthira Prabhu. I said we'll get to it later.
Yes, about inattentiveness.
Oh, inattentive
What is
chanting.
it?
Okay. Yeah. Well, another thing is to recognize about this verse is it just slips in there the concept of what is the purpose of the chanting. Why are we chanting? Because sometimes devotees have a misunderstanding why they're chanting. But here it's stated very clearly, the real goal of chanting is to get love of God. Like you say, it's not going to happen overnight, but we should be able to be experiencing some degree of love of God along the way. Otherwise, there's nothing to inspire us to keep going, right? If you're not getting a taste, some kind of taste, at least a partial taste of love of God, you're not going to keep chanting. It has to be something superior than you've been experiencing. So, getting to all the way to the highest platform of love of God, but it's coming in steps. It's coming in increments. Those steps aren't like, hatha yoga and this a yoga and that a yoga. The steps are just gradually experiencing a greater attachment to Krishna and to Krishna's service, and at the same time, simultaneously, a natural diminishing of our material attachments and material desires. These things should be going on simultaneously. Okay, so attentiveness, yeah. Yeah, you could say that that's our greatest challenge, is how to control the mind, how to be attentive. Like, what does Arjuna tell Krishna in Bhagavad Gita?
The mind is stronger than the wind.
The mind is more difficult to control than the wind. I mean, even the scientists can't control the wind, right? Look what happens. There's a hurricane, and even the scientists collapse. They can't function. Their houses also get blown to bits, right? I mean, just think how powerful the wind is. The wind just, you see, like, for instance, well, you probably don't have hurricanes here, I suppose. No? Hurricanes or cyclones or tornadoes, no? One time, what year was this? I think it was 87 in London. If you can imagine, in London there was a hurricane.
Huh.
I mean, who ever heard of a hurricane in London? I wasn't in London at that time. I came, I think, 2 days later. It was incredible. There were these huge trees, like, I don't know how big the trees were, like, how many meters across in diameter? Maybe 4 meters in diameter.
Oh.
In the park next to the temple, Soho Square. I mean, huge trees, and tall, must have been like, I don't know, 50 meters tall. Massive trees, just kaput, just, and there was this iron fence around Soho Square, just like collapsed, like toothpicks. Incredible. I mean, the wind's going through London, through central London, where something like 100 kilometers an hour or something like that. Maybe no, actually more. I think it was more. Somehow or other, our temple was spared. Our canopy got sort of melted or something, but in general, somehow or other we were spared. But it did a lot of damage. It's so powerful. Hurricane is so powerful. It picks up buildings. It picks up ships and cars and just like throws them around like toys, like paper toys. Unbelievable. Like in America, when was it, last year? I think there was one town that was hit by a tornado, and they showed a photograph before the tornado, after the tornado. It literally just flattened the whole town completely. How powerful is the wind? And Arjuna is saying, it's more difficult to control the mind. So if you have any problems controlling your mind, it's no surprise. So it's a struggle. Sometimes we think, but it's too much of a struggle. Why? I should do something else. This is too hard. I'm chanting Hare Krishna with my lips, but my mind is everywhere, all over the place. Anybody have that experience? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. But to me, it's like I think of it like this. It's like, you know what a bathtub is? You have bathtubs in this country?
Yes, it was.
Bathtub. Translate.
Badekar.
Huh?
It's not the thing you bathe in the
Bathtub.
in the
Instead of
Bathroom.
shower.
Oh,
you have
yeah,
bathtub.
yes, yes.
Okay. If you take like a huge bucket, let's say, I don't know, 50 liters or something, and you put the plug in the bathtub so the water doesn't come out. You pour the water just all at once into the bathtub. What happens to the water?
Splash.
Some may go out, but it's like sloshing around like this. It's wild, right? It's like this side, that side, this end, that. But if you just are patient and wait a little while, it gradually calms down. You understand? So chanting japas like that. In the beginning, when you first start to chant your japa, your mind's going crazy, right? I have to do this, I have to do that. What about that phone call? It's very important. And I have to get ready for work, and right? Your mind's just like spinning, right? But if you just keep chanting, then little by little it calms down, right?
After 40 years?
Huh?
After 40 years? You
Well,
promise?
The point is, whatever happens, it's improving. It improves. It may not be perfect, but it improves. We should be able to see that improvement. But it also requires some effort to control the mind. You can't just expect it's going to be like, how do you say, just like, automatic. It's not exactly automatic. We have to actually try to focus. And there are different things that may help us. Like, devotees find it helpful to look at a picture of the deities, or to look at the deities, or to look at a picture of their spiritual master, or what else?
chanting together.
What's
I
that?
mean, chanting in like a room where there's more devotees chanting, like Japa time.
Chanting where there are other devotees chanting. Some devotees find it easier to chant where there are no other devotees chanting. Yes, what?
Chanting with Prabhupada is chanting.
Chanting with Srila Prabhupada chanting in the background, that may be helpful. Although personally I can't relate to why devotees, turn on a recording of Prabhupada chanting japa and they put it on 10. Like it's almost loud enough to obliterate your eardrums. Okay, chanting in the association of Srila Prabhupada is fine. But, personally I don't like to have to feel like I'm competing with Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada didn't say that we have to hear his chanting japa. He said we're supposed to hear our own chanting japa. And sometimes devotees have this misconception that they're supposed to chant and hear Prabhupada's chanting. No, you're supposed to chant and hear your own chanting. Okay? But yeah, to have Prabhupada present there, to be chanting with him, fine.
Chant in the morning?
What?
Chanting in the morning?
Prabhupada said, and we have our practical experience, that when you chant your japa in the morning, in the Brahma Muhurta hours, before the sun comes up, that's the best time to chant. It's easier to focus the mind. There's not so much happening. Of course, here there's not so much happening anyway. But in general, the cars aren't going yet, the phones aren't ringing, things aren't moving around so much.
But the mind is also like more quiet in that.
Probably will be more quiet, yeah. It's more of a tendency to be quiet, exactly. Because you don't feel the pressures of the day coming yet. So, Yes,
Sufficient rest. I mean,
sufficient rest is a key factor. My observation, not just my observation, but a lot of other senior devotees have also noticed the same thing, that perhaps the biggest obstacle to devotees chanting attentively is that they aren't well rested. When you're not well rested, your mind, it's really hard to control the mind because you're tired, right? And then it's too much work. It's too difficult. Oh, thank you. Yeah, very good point. Okay, what else about attentive chanting?
If you've done everything you're supposed to do first, I mean, other house chores, then if I do it the night before, if
Yeah.
I don't have like mess around, then
Yeah.
my mind is more silent.
Okay, that's a good
It's
idea,
like
but that
preparation.
can also be a trap,
Yeah.
because then if you think I'm not going to start chanting my japa until I get everything organized, but you'll never get everything completely organized.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you just have to, just let things go and just chant. You understand? But it's also true that to have an organized environment, a clean and tidy environment, makes it much more easy to have a clean and tidy mind. It's much more easy to control the mind if you're in a environment that is tidy, it's organized and clean. Yeah, our surroundings affect our mind.
And I met some devotees, they never eat until they finish their japa.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like a treat after.
yeah.
Oh. Don't eat too much. Don't
Huh?
eat too much. Then
Don't
it's
eat too
also
much,
difficult
especially
to.
the night before.
Yeah.
Well, Prabhupada also gave a formula for chanting 16 rounds for somebody who's very busy. As I recall, he said he used to do this when he was selling his pharmaceutical supplies.
when he was
He's-
married.
Huh?
When he was married.
Yeah, when he was a grihasta. Yeah. Yeah, Prabhupada used to sell.
Drugs.
Yeah, one time, when Sridhar Swami, Prabhupada's disciple Sridhar Swami, first met Srila Prabhupada, they were just having a chat, and Srila Prabhupada was asking him questions about himself, and he said, well, what did you do before? He said, well, actually, he said, I used to sell drugs. And Prabhupada said, oh, really? He said, I also used to sell drugs. Prabhupada was so innocent. Anyway, yeah, so when Prabhupada was traveling, so he said this was his formula. Yeah, because he was busy. He was a businessman, And he said, I chanted. As I recall this, he was talking about himself, but maybe not. So I shouldn't say that. But he said this is a formula how you can do this. You chant 4 rounds before breakfast. Then you chant another 4 rounds before lunch. You chant another 4 rounds before dinner. And you chant your last 4 rounds before you take rest. So he said, if you have to chant before you eat, then you'll definitely chant. And if you have to chant before you go to sleep at night, you'll definitely chant. So he was giving this formula to some devotee who said he was very busy. He had a hard time squeezing in the 16 rounds. So obviously, the ideal thing is, and Srila Prabhupada also said this, is if you just chant all 16 rounds at one time. But that may not be practical for most people, for a lot of people. But at least if you can do it in groups, instead of, a little bit here, a little bit there, but if you can do it in groups of, say, 4 or 8 or something like that, it's helpful because you can concentrate. Of course, Prabhupada also said that when you have important business to do, do that first and chant later. Yeah. Okay, other things about attentive chanting. Other points about attentive. Yes.
About position, I heard one brahmachari, he was giving a lecture that the best is sitting when you chant when you're sitting. But I remember Prabhupada used to take some walks in the morning. So how it is about that?
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up. This is one of the popular ISKCON myths that has become fashionable these days. That you must sit down when you chant Hare Krishna. Achtung! And like even somebody was giving a lecture, a seminar or something, and he was telling devotees that, what was it, that that sitting down is chanting in the mode of goodness, and walking is chanting in the mode of passion. And if you chant lying down, you're in the mode of ignorance. But you see, I mean, that sounds very nice, but where did he get it? You know, we don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's based on some scriptural injunction. I don't know. But I never heard of it before. I certainly didn't ever hear Prabhupada say it. Prabhupada said different things at different times in different places. Often he said, just sit down and chant Hare Krishna. But my understanding was that he wasn't necessarily meaning literally sitting down. What he meant was you just chant your japa and avoid other things. But I remember one time in particular when Prabhupada was telling a devotee, I think because the devotee was sleepy, he said, if you like, he said, you can do like I do. You can pace back and forth and chant. And there's so many instances of Prabhupada walking and chanting. You know, Ashruta Kirti Prabhu, Harisori Prabhu, his servants. It's in videos. There are videos of Prabhupada pacing back and forth in his room, for example, chanting japa.
He was always chanting.
Huh?
He was always chanting japa.
Well, often. When
Yeah.
he wasn't writing or preaching, he was chanting. And, you know, so what does that mean? I asked one devotee, so what does that mean? Does that mean Prabhupada was in the mode of passion? He said, well, no, that's different. You know, Prabhupada was transcendental, you know. Personally, I don't accept it. The criterion is, the criterion Prabhupada gave, the main criterion, practically the only criterion he gave, was the degree to which you can focus on the sound vibration. He said you chant and hear, chant and hear, chant and hear. So whatever is going to be most effective for you as an individual, for you to chant and hear, that's good. So some devotees find it easier to concentrate by sitting down. Fine, if that works for you, great, no problem. Other devotees find it easier to concentrate if they're moving. And I've seen devotees who are like really into this sitting down and chanting thing. A lot of times they're falling asleep half the time too. You know, I would rather walk and be awake and be able to focus on the chanting rather than to, you know, try to artificially do this sitting down thing, and I'm falling asleep half the time. Some devotees, they sleep more than they chant when they're sitting down. And then you wake them up and Prabhu, you know, you're sleeping. No, I wasn't sleeping. I was meditating. you know, his head's like this. You know, his lips aren't moving. His hand's not moving in his bead bag. No, I wasn't sleeping. I was just meditating. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, whatever works. It's not that you have to sit down to chant. Whatever works to help you chant the holy names attentively. Okay. Something else about attentive chanting? Yes.
What about reading?
Reading?
While
Yeah.
chanting?
No, not while chanting, but that you sort of read Prabhupada's books regularly, like that.
Well, yeah. Srila Prabhupada said in at least one place I remember, that in order to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra properly, we have to study, he specified Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, it's a package, you know, not just chanting, but we have to be also daily studying Prabhupada's books. Now, at the time of initiation, for initiation, he didn't tell us to make a vow to read his books. But, practically speaking, to be able to chant properly and to continue chanting, we have to study his books regularly. Otherwise, because otherwise what happens? You're chanting, but you know, it seems to be chanting, but what's going on inside the mind again, right? I heard that one time Srila Prabhupada he happened to be passing by a room or something where he heard his disciples chanting Japa, and Prabhupada commented to what?
Just checking if she sees you.
Well, and Prabhupada commented to one of the devotees with him. He said, "What is this shnicker rom rom?" You may have heard this. Shnicker rom rom. Hey digga digga hey digga digga hey digga digga rom rom hey digga digga hey. There are a few others too. I heard that there was one fellow was visiting one of our temples for the morning program, and he was just observing everything, you know, observing the devotees chanting Hare Krishna. Then at Prasadam, one of the devotees sat down with him and said, "So, you know, you had the experience now of being in our temple, you know, do you have any questions?" He said, "Yeah." He said, I'd like to know, who is Eddie Krishna?" So anyway, yeah, we have to actually chant Hare Krishna, the holy names, you know, because if you chant something else, like, you know, shnicker shnicker ram ram, I mean, don't necessarily expect, you don't know where you're going to go.
Who is Sri Shnika?
Then you go to Shnika Loka. We don't have any information about Shnika Loka. Who's in Shnika Loka? About Shnika. We have a Krishna book, but we don't have a Shnika book. We don't know what happens in Shnika Loka. You know, you can be chanting your whole life, you know. You know, thinking you're doing really great. Shnika shnika ram ram. You chant 16 rounds a day. Yes, I chant 16 rounds a day every day. Shnika shnika ram ram. Then, when you leave your body, you may be very, very surprised.
Who's this guy? I'm Lord Schnicker. Who's this guy coming to get you?
Yeah.
Lord Schnicker.
What happened? Have you ever had the experience that you're chanting your rounds, you're chanting Japa, and then after you, whatever, 16 rounds or whatever your session of Japa is, and then at the end you think, what happened? You know, you can't even remember what, you know, because why? Your mind was just completely all over the place, right? Because sometimes we lose sight of that, and Japa sometimes becomes like something that we know we're supposed to do, or something like that, but it's not really like, you know, tops on our list of priorities. It's like something extra, right? But Srila Prabhupada told one of his disciples once that his priorities in life should be like this. He said, first, you should have good physical health. Because without good physical health, you can't chant good japa. Second, should be chanting good japa. He specified good. Right? Because without chanting good japa, you can't do nice service. And third should be the service, your service to the Sankirtan movement. Okay? First, physical health, then chanting good japa, and then your service to the Sankirtan movement. Now, a lot of times devotees seem to do it the other way around. You know, well, it's the service, Prabhu. Service is the most important. You have your service to the movement. And then you squeeze in some schnickas, right? In between this and that, in between phone calls and while you're driving and stuff like that, But it's like extra. Chanting japa is like extra. The real thing is the service, Prabhu. Got to get the service done. Yeah, but chanting is also service, and it's most basic service. So anyway, we do this service, then we squeeze in some schnickas, then maybe, this isn't even sure, but just maybe, if we still have time, we take care of our health, right? Okay, so, chanting japa is essential. It's like, probably most of you have computers or you use computers, right? So, with a computer, when you get the computer, or let's say when you get a computer program, it has certain default settings. It means that it's set in a certain way to do certain things and not do other things, right? Everybody understand?
Yeah.
Okay. If you want it to do something different, you have to tell it. You have to change the settings.
Yes.
So, we are all materially conditioned souls, and our setting is Maya. We have 4 major settings on our internal computer. Right? The tendency to commit mistakes, imperfect senses, the tendency to be illusioned, and the cheating propensity. These are our settings. Okay, we come that way. Right. So, if we want that to change, we have to change the settings. It's not going to happen automatically, and that especially comes from these 2 things, from hearing and chanting, from studying Prabhupada's books and chanting Hare Krishna. Otherwise, the settings will remain the same. They aren't going to change by themselves, no matter how nice you are, or how the how do you say, the buzz phrase now in ISKCON is caring and loving. No matter how caring and loving you are, if you're not chanting Hare Krishna, forget it. You understand? So, my realization about chanting japa is like this. For me, chanting japa is for the soul the way breathing is for the body. I mean, what's the most basic need of the body? It's to breathe, right? You can do without water for some time, for a few days actually. People sometimes survive without water for several days. You can do without food for a long time, like even weeks you can do without food. But how long can you do without breathing? 2 minutes? Breathing is most essential. It's most fundamental. It's not optional. To some degree, drinking water is optional. To some degree, eating is optional. But breathing's not optional. Sorry. Let's say someday you get up in the morning and you think, wow, today I got a very busy day. I got a lot to do. And, breathing takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. It's like, in and out, it's like, and, to be honest, today I really don't think I have the time and energy to be able to do this. But it's okay. It's okay. because tomorrow I'll breathe twice as much. Right? No, because tomorrow will not come for you. Sorry. My realization is you cannot function on the spiritual platform. You cannot function as a soul without chanting your rounds. And especially without chanting 16 rounds. It's not, how do you say, it's not just, well, you know, some people chant 4 rounds, some people chant 16 rounds. No, there's a certain magic to that number, 16 rounds. And even with 16 rounds, it's hard for us to be on the spiritual platform. It's hard for us to understand ourselves as souls, right? Anybody have that experience? What to speak of less than 16 rounds? And what we need to do is chant more rounds, not less rounds. And sometimes devotees say, well, you know, what's the point of chanting 16 inattentive rounds? Better I try to chant 4 attentive rounds. No, that's not better. Because the more you do something, the better you get at it. If you want to improve the quality, you increase the quantity. That's one of the things. It's not the only technique. But one of the ways to improve the quality is to increase the quantity. This is explained by the acharyas. I don't remember specifically who or where. But it's one of the techniques. If you want to improve the quality, you increase the quantity. Let's say, for instance, to use the example of some material activity. Let's say anything. Let's say making chapatis. Okay? Now, if you want to make really good chapatis, how do you do that? You can't just go into the kitchen occasionally, once every Janmashtami or something, you go in to make chapatis. If you want to make good chapatis, you have to go in the kitchen, you have to make chapatis every day. Then you'll become good at making chapatis. The more quantity, naturally, the quality improves, okay? So, like sometimes when devotees say that, they say, well, what's the point of 16 inattentive rounds? So then they want to just chant 4 rounds. Really, but they have this idea really attentive, right? And so sometimes you see them chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You never seen this? I've seen devotees do this. They think that's more attentive. It's not necessarily more attentive. It's more eccentric, that's for sure, but it's not necessarily more attentive. So anyway, even if you're 16 rounds, even if they're inattentive, it's better to do that than to just try to chant 4 rounds. Better to try to chant the 16 rounds. Do the 16 rounds, even if there's some discrepancy involved. Because it's like this. The worst rounds you chant will be better than the best rounds you don't chant. You understand the idea? The worst rounds you chant will be better than the best rounds you don't chant. I didn't chant some excellent rounds today. Fantastic. So even if there's some discrepancy, there's some defect in it, don't worry, just keep going. What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Every endeavor is covered by some fault. So if there's some defect in your chanting, you're just following Bhagavad Gita, don't worry. Okay, so another thing is that, regarding speed of chanting, because this is also related to attentiveness. One time a devotee asked Srila Prabhupada about speed. I don't remember the question exactly, but Prabhupada replied that he said, don't worry about speed. he said, try to give full concentration. And he said, then your speed will naturally increase. Everybody got that? It's an important point. If you're really concentrating, your speed will naturally increase. One Gaudiya Mat sannyasi told me that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to chant 64 rounds in 4 hours.
Wow. How many minutes is that per round?
It's
2.5.
it's a little bit less than 4 minutes around. 3.7 or something like that. Can you imagine? I can't even breathe that fast. What to speak of chant that fast? Same mantra we're chanting. You know, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. You know, that means 16 rounds in an hour. Unbelievable. But you know, he's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, right? No garbage in the mind, right? Just completely clear, completely focused. Of course, he also, before he started the Gaudiya Mat, he made this vow. He was chanting in Mayapur, I think it was, what was it, 10 million names or something. I can't remember. He had a vow. Do you know? Do you remember?
I only know it was 9 years, I think.
Huh?
Was it 9 years?
I don't know. He was in Mayapur for a long time, but he had this vow. He was chanting this huge number of rounds. So again, quantity, right? Yeah. So anyway, regarding speed, the thing is, though, that that there is something about speed. It's not just a matter that you chant more attentively and your speed will increase. We do have to consider speed. It is a factor. And the reason I say that is based on several times Srila Prabhupada saying that we should be able to chant 16 rounds in 2 hours. That's the guideline Prabhupada gave. So I've always taken that very seriously, that it's not, you know, Prabhupada, because he said the same thing several times. It's not just something inconsequential, something that we can ignore. Why did he say that? He must have said it because that's what he expected of us. Now, for myself, I have chronic respiratory problems, and I've always, my whole life, always had a hard time breathing, various kinds of breathing problems. And I think that's part of the problem I've always had with chanting Japa. So for years, like, I think the fastest I could chant around, right, like really focusing, when I was really attentive, really focusing, was 8 minutes around. I was close to 2 hours, because 8 minutes around is 2 hours and 8 minutes, right? But still, I always had this feeling, you know, I'm not really fulfilling Prabhupada's instruction. So I was always praying to Krishna, please help me to do this. And finally, about, I don't know, a few months ago, I started being able to chant pretty regularly when I'm really focusing on the chanting 7 minutes around, so it's less than 2 hours. But I take it like that it's not just a question of speed. It's not just a question of like getting it done. That's not the idea. The idea is, because I've noticed that when it takes me longer than that, then I realize actually I've been spacing out. I time my rounds so that I know how long it takes. We should time our rounds. Krishna says, time I am, right? Time is important. We need to pay attention. And we should know what's a reasonable pace for me. But just chanting more slowly does not necessarily mean that you're chanting more attentively. Actually, it can be just the opposite. Chanting more slowly can be less attentive. And if you're chanting more slowly, then you're like leaving these little spaces in between the syllables that you may not really recognize, right? I compare it to, I think of these like these wildlife documentaries on television where they're showing about wildlife in Africa, and they show a close-up of the lion in the bushes, and he's watching this herd of antelope. Everybody know what antelope are?
Mm.
Yeah. How do you say antelope in Russian? Oh, good. And he's just, I don't know how they get this close up, but you know, the lion's just sitting there like this. He's not doing anything, he's just watching. Right? He's just waiting. And then they explain, the documentary explains what he's waiting for. He's waiting for the spaced out one. The spaced out antelope. The one who's a little slower than the others. The one who's kind of wandering around, maybe a little sick or whatever, you know, but spaced out. And then when he sees his opportunity, then he jumps. So, like that. But you see, the antelope don't know that the lion's there in the bushes. So in the same way, when you're chanting slowly, you may be unaware that Maya's sneaking in between the syllables. You understand? But that may happen. Chanting more slowly doesn't necessarily mean more attentive. Another point is, on the other side, that just because a person chants very fast, you listening to this, Mother Sanatani? Does not necessarily mean that your japa is superior. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's the reason you're chanting the reason you're chanting faster is because you're more attentive. Some people just chant fast and they remain successful at being inattentive.
Check.
But the point is that these things are relevant. At least this is my realization. I take it seriously. I take it as important that Prabhupada said we should be able to chant 16 rounds in 2 hours. So
It's not within 2 hours.
what's that?
It's not within 2 hours.
He said different things. One time he said, at least once he said about